Well, Ron, thank you for coming on Topless Government. Really appreciate it. I know we want to talk about, we're going to delve into this episode about, the quality and abilities of, candidates that are running for public office and how it's kind of transformed, our democracy into something that it shouldn't be. I mean,
Yes.
and I think this is a timely discussion because, we're almost to the midterm elections and it's kind of rough right now. And so I'm very happy that you came onto the show. I'm the host of Topless Government, and I live, breathe, eat, and sleep politics. And I've done 2 tours of duty in the U.S. Senate and 1 tour of duty in the House. And it's my privilege of having worked in state and local governments in corporate America and in several lobbying firms here in Washington, D.C. So my guest is Ron Hamm. He's a very good friend of mine, and he's actually taught me everything that I know about lobbying and being a good advocate for your clients. And so Ron is the president of Hamm Consulting Group. And so, Ron, if you want to, talk a little bit about the Hamm Consulting Group and what you do, we can start off right there.
Well, thanks, Crystal. First of all, I'm delighted to be with you here today, and you have been so gracious to say that I taught you everything you know. But you're an amazing lobbyist in your own right. So
Thank you.
it's been a privilege to work with you, but more than that, to be a really good friend over the years. And of course, in my area of work, I have advocated for local governments, public sector agencies, including higher education institutions, 4-year colleges, and community colleges. For most of my career, I actually began working in local government on the ground where people will tell you when there is a pothole or their trash needs to be picked up or they want to have some community development block grant funding through HUD to do neighborhood or community improvements and revitalization. So I've had the opportunity to be on the ground working in city and county government in Southern California. And then upon arriving in DC, I went into the lobbying field for local governments in Southern California, and then also worked with another firm where Crystal and I met. And I worked in about 10 different states, again, advocating for municipal governments, higher education, nonprofits, and several private sector firms. So I'm happy to be here. What we do for our clients at the Hamm Consulting Group is, of course, advocate, whether it be for federal funding, it may be for legislation, it could be for regulatory relief. The other thing, too, is to work to really raise our clients' profiles here in Washington and to create opportunities where there may not be opportunities. So we enjoy the challenge of doing that within the federal government. So grants are a big part of what we do, appropriations, authorizations, as well as following all of these tons and tons of billions of dollars that are out there and really making sure that the client is well positioned to take advantage of those opportunities if they are good fits. So that's a quick wrap on who I am. And Krista, I really look forward to having this discussion with you today.
Yeah, because I know you live in Virginia,
Mhm.
and I live in DC, and I've been seeing a lot of these ads for the 7th and 10th congressional districts in Virginia. Abigail what's her name?
Spanberger.
Spanberger and Jennifer Wexton.
Yes.
I mean, and I think this is like the perfect example of what we want to talk about today is, the GOP candidates that are running against them individually, their leadership qualities, their qualifications, their ability to just work with others besides Republicans, and the extreme views that they have. I mean, it's just we are now at a point in our country that it doesn't matter about your qualifications as long as you go along with a certain base within your party. then, and you keep saying the same thing over and over again, and it makes it true, because that comes along with conspiracy theories. I mean, I was just like, your thoughts about those two races and, the impact that it's having on, the qualities and abilities of candidates running for public office.
Well, those are two very relevant races. As a matter of fact, Jennifer Wexton is currently my congressional representative, and I think she's done a very good job here. I will tell you, just watching some of the advertisements, and it goes both ways.
Hmm.
It's like I really wish that they would verify the information and also provide some perspective before just putting those ads. And I know people have done political ads forever, but as one that's worked in this business for quite some time and worked on campaigns, I worked on campaigns when I was in California. The thing we always wanted to focus on was having a good, competent, respectful person that you could trust who wanted to do the work. And I think in watching these two races, it's all about what you're not going to do,
Hmm.
when you get to Washington, or what you plan to do is really going to hurt someone else. And I think it's the sound bites, it's the attraction of, let's just throw folks out and we're going to get these people in and they are going to do X, Y, and Z and make this country great and all those things. But what I find out is some of the people that are running in these races, number one, they're not very honest. And number two, they really want to do the work of
Right.
legislating? I mean, that's what it comes down to. Are they really going to study the issues and look at policies that make a difference in the quality
Hmm.
of life of their candidates? I always tell my friends, I said, when you look at people, whether you vote Republican and Democrat, and I worked for a Republican when I was in California,
Right.
when you look at that, are they going to make your life better or your community better or improve things? If they can't tell you if there's an issue, crime, for instance,
Hmm.
if they can't give you a succinct answer in terms of what policy they would put forward to deal with the crime issue, rather than just to say, you have all this crime under the Democrats or the Republicans, I
Hmm.
really don't want to talk to or vote for someone like that. I want to hear someone say, if I am in office, these are the steps that I would take, or this is how I would work with other folks to bring about the change to make sure that people are safe. So my theory on that is you have to stop looking at parties so much. You need to really take a look at the candidates, but we are just so split these days. I was talking to a friend earlier, and he's like, Ron, is there any way that you can get rid of the Democratic and Republican Party? I said, well,
Hmm.
if I could do that, I would probably be beyond earthly, to be honest with you. I said, the bottom line is, I don't see that going away. And I said, I said, I don't think some of these folks coming into these parties have never really studied the history of these parties. They just, they will connect to a name in which I've seen the Republican philosophies. And I have to tell you, many of the folks that are running these days in that party don't represent those qualities and the attributes that I found and values that are part of being Republican. I could say the same thing for some Democrats. But the bottom line
Hmm.
out is that people look at who represents your interests. Are you voting because the sound bites, or you're unhappy about something and you think someone's going to come in, flip a switch, and change your life overnight? If they are selling you that, you probably want to run away
Right.
from them as well.
Yeah. I've just been struggling. I mean,
Mhm,
even with voting in DC,
mhm,
and I don't agree with a lot of the incumbents that are running for reelection and everything.
mhm,
But it would just be nice for the folks to just be honest and just, but they can't. I mean, and you're right. It's on both parties, to be perfectly
mhm,
honest. It really,
mhm.
really is. And it's just the one thing that I do remember, I think this really all started when the late Senator John McCain picked Sarah Palin as his running mate.
Someone who I work very closely with and
Yep,
still
I
am
know.
to this
I
day.
know.
You work with
I
him
know.
too, so yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
I mean, I think that's where it started because
Mhm,
I don't know if you ever watched the movie that was based on all of that. It was, I can't remember the title of the movie,
mhm.
but Juliana
I remember.
Moore played Sarah Palin. And
Mhm,
remember at the very tail end of the movie where the concession speech and Senator McCain was trying to keep it above board, And then when she came out on the podium, Sarah Palin, just the enthusiasm of people. And then it was the comments that were made by Senator John McCain's campaign staff.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, "Oh my gosh, she has unleashed something that we're never going to be able to come back from."
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, and it's sad. I mean, because she was governor of Alaska. I mean, she beat my former boss in
That's
the
right.
primary.
Mm-hmm.
And, and no one, she came out of nowhere. She was mayor of Wasilla, Alaska, which is, a little further south of Anchorage. And I mean, she beat Frank Murkowski. I mean, badly in the primary. And it's just like, she never had a grasp of government.
Right.
She didn't. She really, really didn't. I mean, even as mayor of Wasilla, she didn't grasp anything. I mean, she ran that state in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And then she left. She didn't even finish her term, Ron. She didn't even finish her term. And
And
I mean,
she's
and
running
it just,
again. And
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, S360 has an office in Anchorage.
Mm-hmm.
And, they have the stacked primary, they have the stacked elections.
Yes.
And so, she's not going to win. Because between her and the other Republican, Basic, because he comes from a prominent political family.
That's true. That's right.
But the thing is just like, you look at her, she was the beginning of this nonsense.
Yep.
And it continues to go on. And then with, 2010, when the Tea Party people came in, and you just sit there, you're like, well, do I really want someone who doesn't even have a clear understanding of the budget or just how to work with people, or who have, good leadership qualities?
That's right.
Because these people don't.
No, you get rewarded for talking loud, saying outlandish things. And I look at, even some, I think the Marjorie Taylor Greene, for example,
Mm-hmm.
it's, and people say, well, Brian, you work around this stuff. How does she continue to get elected to office with all the things that she says and the antics that she pulls?
Right.
So we need to ask her constituents that. I mean, it's someone that likes that kind of behavior and that supports it. And I said the problem with that now is you see politics evolve. It used to be, you would go and get training, you would be really vetted, and you would have to bring something to the table. But those days are gone. I mean, you can just, pretty much self-identify and say, hey, look, I'm running for office. And, again, the more outlandish and brash you can be, you seem to be rewarded. You look at Arizona, state that, I worked in for years, in terms of what's happening there in the governor's race. And again, and even more so in the Secretary of State races, which
Right.
we never really paid attention to Secretary of State. It was like, yes, in office, but now we've come to know how critical it is. And you have election deniers all over these ballots, all over the country. So to me, I think we are in some trouble here. I've seen Liz Cheney support, and I think Ryan up in Ohio, and she's I think she was supporting Alyssa Slotkin, who I work with in Lansing.
Mm-hmm.
And I had someone tell me, they said, well, that's incredible. I've never seen that before, but maybe these are the kinds of things that have to happen. I said, well, those are anomalies. Yeah, that's an anomaly, because typically it's not like she's receiving good grades for doing this within her own party. So there's a price to be paid if you step out to do something like that. So yeah, and like you said, back to the races here. Yes, I am glued to both of those. I voted. Me and my son voted last Saturday in the early vote, and we just when we left, we were thinking it was beautiful because we voted in peace. There were no protesting, no one with weapons watching us vote. People were cordial, and we all probably were voting for different people, but it didn't really matter. It was just, we felt like it was a good environment. And we also said, this is how it should be at every polling station, every place that you vote across the country. People should feel safe and free that they can go in and exercise the sacred right.
Yeah, I mean, because you know what, you bring up a good point about vetting. That has long gone.
Yep.
And that's unfortunate because, you have these political arms for both parties, and they're not doing any vetting.
No.
Or they said, oh, well, if you have a base that's vocal,
Mm-hmm.
will support you.
Yes.
Or if you just say you support the former president,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's fine, then that's it. That's the only
Mm-hmm.
qualification that you need, is
That's
that.
right. That's right.
And I mean, it's sad. And I mean, we were having a conversation with a Republican member
Mm-hmm.
yesterday who's from Louisiana, and we were asking him about you know what's going to happen in lame duck,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, "Well, guess what?" He said, "If we win, and we win by a large margin, FY23 appropriations and NDAA, that's it.
Wow.
They're not going to do anything else."
Mm.
And then, Ron, I asked about community project funding,
Mm.
and he said, "Well, the Freedom Caucus has already released a list of demands, a long list of demands.
Mm-hmm.
They do not want congressionally directed spending nor community project funding next Congress." So he said, and his deputy chief of staff said the same thing. It's contingent upon the margin of the conference.
Okay.
He said if they get more than 30 seats, in all likelihood they will be able to keep earmarks.
Okay.
But if it's a slim majority, and he said the House Freedom Caucus members are going to hijack the conference and just basically say, no, you're not going to do that. He personally wants to keep them because he
Mm-hmm.
thinks it's an abdication to the executive branch.
I would agree.
Yeah, and I'm just like, the process has actually worked out really well this
Very
year.
transparent. Yeah.
But the last year, it didn't, because it just happened so quickly.
That's right.
But now that they have, it's been in there, for over a year now, almost 2 years, it's worked perfectly.
And that makes me wonder because, and I work with a member that's a part of that caucus, and
Hmm.
it's the same thing. He said he would look at the possibility of community project funding, which of course he didn't submit any projects for
Hmm.
any of his constituents. But I will say, when I look at Freedom Caucus and some of these groups, I'm thinking, what why are you here in Washington? I
Right.
mean, what is the end game? Is it just to, lambast people, or to say the government can't do anything? Is it just for what do you want to look back and see as your legacy as a
Right.
member? And I just don't understand that. And then my theory has been, and I've checked the websites of some of these folks, just their press
Hmm.
releases to say, hey, well, let me see what they did in their district, because these grants came out. These were huge grants. Did they get any, or what projects have they steered back? And I see nothing. I
Right.
see no press releases on anything that you've accomplished for the district, but I see all of that, what you're not going to do, and you're going to oppose Dr.
Hmm.
Fauci and all those kinds of things. And I'm thinking, people, you are losing an opportunity with these folks in office. You need to vote someone in that's going to, help you repair those streets, and deal with the energy efficiency issues, deal with cultural community revitalization.
Hmm.
You want those things to happen. But, to me, I don't understand. And you pay taxes, and I'm thinking, I would definitely want, when I drive on a parkway, man, I am glad Jennifer Wexton
Right.
did this, and VDOT went to USDOT to do
Hmm.
these things. That's what should be happening. But I think some of these guys wouldn't even write letters of support for grant applications, if
Right.
you ask me. I know, because I work with some, and I'm thinking, okay, you won't do the appropriations piece. My God, we're competing for a grant. At least write a letter, but they won't do that either. And it
Hmm.
makes me think, do you want a mouthpiece, or do you want someone that's going to bring something home to you? And until we make that choice, we're going to be hung with these kinds of candidates. And you're right, they don't know what the budget looks like. They're not really engaged and excited. To me, they're not passionate about the real work.
Right.
And that's what we have to get to. But it's up to us as voters to do that. And the parties have to help find those kinds of people, rather than, you joining your base and you're listening to the former president or the current president and that
Hmm.
kind of thing. It's just we're in too many camps here. And we need to, as Americans, I think, come together around these things.
Well, because it's funny, because when I was at university and studying, political science,
Mm-hmm.
And we were going all the way back to the founding fathers and the political
Hmm.
parties.
Yep.
And how they had the wigs, I mean,
Hmm.
it was so many different, and it
Yes.
wasn't, I mean, and I think it was George Washington that warned about the politicization of our government.
Yep.
And in his farewell address, he saw it coming. And
Hmm.
we still haven't even, we still haven't learned our lesson. I mean, we're still in the great experiment of our democracy,
That's right.
and people still have not learned their lesson about, sometimes you just have to pick the right person because of how they stand on issues.
That's exactly right.
And
Yep.
I mean, because it's funny because because I do show notes for each episode,
Hmm.
and there was an article in the Washington Post about people seeking public office and their qualifications and abilities.
Hmm.
And they said it matters. And then I don't know if you remember former Congressman Lee Hamilton
Oh,
from
yes.
Indiana. He said the
Hmm.
same thing. He said, "Look," he said, "it does matter." And
That's right.
but unfortunately, on both sides of the aisle, it's just you don't have those folks that think that way. I mean, and then when you have the new freshmen coming in, because they've toppled an incumbent who happened to
Hmm.
be in leadership,
Yep.
and then and they're in a safe district, but they don't have any kind of empathy for their Democratic colleague who's in a district that
Hmm.
went for Trump, and they're like, well, this I'm gonna help get him or she primaried because I don't like the
Yep.
way they vote.
No, and that's a great point. And I'll tell you, I had been reading, went back and did a little research, and there was a Brookings
Yeah.
article, and it
Yes.
talked about re-engineering politicians and basically how activist groups choose our candidates even before we vote. So you juxtapose that against what you just talked about on those primaries. That's exactly what's happening. So, and you can see with between the gerrymandering
Mm-hmm.
and then these certain bases that are created, it's already cooked before
Right.
before you get there. And those primaries are where people, I don't think they're paying enough attention, and maybe they are. I don't think so, because you're right. Basically, it's not the general anymore. It's the
No.
primaries where this thing is determined. And the Republicans, to their credit, they have maximized the use of these primaries to get you out if you weren't singing from the same sheet of music, especially with this last administration. And that's
Right.
continuing now, even though he's not in office. President Trump is still continuing now, because he gets on television. He'll say, "Hey, if you're not with me, you're going to get primary and you're going to lose."
Right.
And he won a lot of those. A lot of those people are
He
running
did.
right now. So
Well, he's going to announce that he's running for in 2024.
not again. Okay.
Yeah, he's going to do it after the elections, at the
Okay.
midterms. I mean, it's the cult of personality, Ron.
Yes, it is.
And I mean, and they have these litmus tests on both in both parties.
Yep, they
They
do.
do. I mean, because I always say this on my show. The Democrats eat their own,
Yes.
and the Republicans are always in lockstep, unified with the messaging.
Hmm.
The Democrats are not. I mean, because the Democratic caucus is not homogeneous in any way, shape, or form when it
No.
comes to, their political beliefs. It's not.
Hmm.
And I understand that. But at the end of the day, you have to work together as a
That's,
caucus.
that's right.
The Republican conference, people privately will say, "Oh, I don't like that," but when it comes to the public stuff, they stay on message. And I mean, I mean, I don't understand how the Democrats cannot understand that nor do it. And then also, oh, when they go low, we go high. That's not working anymore.
That is not working anymore. And I think two things there. One, you're exactly right. It's like there's no level of control. The Democrats sort of do what they want to do. It to me, also, their messaging is just like antiquated. They just don't message well, because
Right.
I think even as bad as things have gotten with inflation, man, I was like, why didn't you explain that this is a global issue? There, you talked about the gas companies, the prices of gas and all those. Well, those companies, they're making record profits. But I'm like,
Hmm.
you're talking about it on November 1st. I mean,
Yes.
where have you been to try to defend that? So, and then to me, and I told you, mentioned the White House folks, I said, you guys have, there's been some really good policies that have passed that
Yeah.
you guys have put forward that's gone through Congress that the
Right.
president signed into
Right.
law. I was like, but no one knows what it is. And the other thing is the language that they talk in is too
I
complex.
know.
Got to simplify and take the university levels off that stuff and just meet people where they are. So those are
Right.
things that I think they need to work on, because you would think, my God, after January 6th, you pass a BIL, you pass inf- what is it, Inflation Reduction Act, you
Yep.
do all this ARPA stuff. To me, I'm like, God, those are policies that, these are good things. You should be reelected. This shouldn't be an impediment to you being reelected.
Mm-mm.
This should help you. This is good policy. But again, the messaging just has not been there. So I think they suffer a lot from that. And that recent letter on the Ukraine stuff,
Oh
that
my.
now
What
that
did
was,
you think about that?
I thought it was complete failure. I thought that was a mess. That was unfortunate. That shouldn't have never happened. And
No,
then
I mean,
staff was getting blamed. And I'm like, no, well, time out. You can't really blame your staff. You're the leader here.
yep.
You know, you're in that position, so you can't just throw your staff under the bus. And, eventually you say them, and then you say, well, I'm ultimately responsible. But man, how can you have such a faux pas this close to another thing, this close to the election? And I mean, that was bad for a number of members in that caucus. They were really angry about that, and they should have been.
Well, yeah, because it was funny.
And do you work with her?
No.
Okay.
Well, I did know her scheduler because I
Hmm.
invited them to Washington Potlatch to
Okay.
sit at our table. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I have an issue with the Progressive Caucus for a variety of reasons.
Right.
They don't understand the long game.
Hmm.
And the one thing I can say, and I tell people this all the time, or just to gently remind them, Ron, that Speaker Nancy Pelosi grew up in Baltimore, Maryland.
That's right. Her dad was the mayor of Baltimore, right?
And her brother was a congressman from Maryland.
That's right.
And I keep telling them, I said, Baltimore politics are bare knuckle politics.
Hmm.
And that's where she honed her skills. I mean, I don't agree with her on a lot of things, but I
Right.
respect her when it comes to the point where she says point blank, we need to get this done. If you're not going to vote with us, tell me in advance.
Right.
Don't go out to the media and say you're against this and then I hear about it and then you expect me to not do anything. Cuz one of the
Hmm.
other things with relation to like keeping these, the Democratic caucus and the Republican conference in check is that there
Hmm.
needs to be some consequences.
I
Cuz
agree.
remember Tom DeLay?
He didn't the hammer.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, and I actually said that on Twitter, and somebody
Hmm.
said, "Well, that's so dictatorial." I said, "No, it's not." I said, "There's too many rebels in each of these caucus. Well, no, in the Democratic caucus,
That's right.
and it's like at some point, if you want to stay in the majority, you just need to. Sometimes you need to just help leadership,
That's right.
and then I'm getting to the point where when it comes to like certain issues and certain members in the Democratic caucus who are Catholic, they're pro-life, pro-gun, but they're with you 99% of the other times.
Right.
But you have a problem when they vote against, gun control, gun reform, and any abortion bill. It's like because I'm sorry, that's their faith.
That's right.
And then also it's the makeup of their congressional district.
Hmm. Yep.
And
That does matter. Yeah.
and and that's what I don't understand. Because okay, so here's another example. Congresswoman Katie Porter,
I've worked with her. Yep.
her district is in Orange County.
Hmm.
You know who she invited to come campaign for her? Take a guess.
Was it from the White House or
No, from the
Not Nancy
squad.
Pelosi? Who?
From the squad.
Oh, 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 oh.
Okay.
Not
Yeah.
oh,
Yes.
Omar.
Yes.
I was just in her
Yes.
district 2 weeks ago. Yeah, see, to me, and again, someone who currently does work in Orange County, has you
Hmm.
worked in that county with Cal State Fullerton, and living in Southern California. Yeah, that's not the person you bring to Orange County.
No,
I mean, you
she did
just
not read the room.
no.
She did not. And I mean, and that's why
And she's actually a pretty intelligent woman too.
she is.
Yeah,
I mean, she is. And I'm just sitting there and I go, why? Why would you do this? And it's just like, read the room.
that's right.
I mean, sometimes I think, and I shouldn't say this out loud, but I
Mhm.
am. Sometimes I think that they want to be in the minority,
Yeah, yes.
you
So
know, and because
some
the
of the
things
moves
that
they
they
make, it
do and
looks
the
like
things
it.
that they say, and then, you know, all this stuff about, free college tuition. And then they talk about free public transit.
Well, there's nothing free here, and
Right.
I was with a client a couple weeks ago,
Hmm.
and me and the other people that were in the room after we left, we were like, "Oh my God, these people, they want everything free.
Right.
Someone has to pay. There's a cost to this. It's not really free." But yeah, they were like, yeah, free transit. People should, I mean, almost any service, social service, or human service, they
Hmm.
were like, it should all be totally free. And
Right.
I was like, well, the problem is the metro is not going to run if no one's paying.
Exactly.
You have to pay. It's already heavily subsidized anyway. So you have to
Hmm.
have someone pay. But yeah, but there's a lot on that progressive wing that thinks everything should be free. And as someone who's put one son through college and I have one in now, it's sort of hard for me to say free tuition when I'm paying tuition,
Yeah.
for everybody. And I don't think, and that if you get that, you necessarily appreciate it as much as someone who's worked hard through school, had to take every dime and work and pay and go to school.
Hmm.
That's a different ballgame. But I think just to say free tuition, and frankly, the thing about free tuition is there are a number of institutions, one of which I work with, that is not in favor of that,
Hmm.
not in favor
Well, I mean, because having worked at an urban research
hmm
university and, having dealt with the fact that the majority of the funding came from state government,
right.
but it got this particular institution in a particular state. The governor at the time literally reduced the percentage of state funding to
Mm.
10%, Ron.
Wow.
So I said the unthinkable, and I said, well, y'all are a private school. We might as well just become a private school
That's
because we're
right.
only getting 10% of our funding from the state government.
Right.
I said, but we're a state government entity. And I said, but the state government is not helping us. I mean, because they'll tell you, like, oh, we're going to give you money. And then they go, oh, I'm sorry, we're clawing it back.
Oh,
We're doing a pass. How did they call it? They're doing a swipe.
okay.
I mean, and they did this consistently. This governor did it consistently every year because in that state, higher education and healthcare are not protected under the state constitution.
That's why. So let me ask you this: did that other flagship, well, if you call it a flagship,
Yeah.
was that other state university? Was it equitable or not?
No, it was not.
Okay, there we go.
Because there's the one there, they have the two systems. No,
hmm
yeah. No, three. It's like three or four. Yeah, no, it was never equitable.
Okay.
Because as long as, remember, football is king.
Yes. Yep.
Football is king.
hmm
And I mean, and it's unfortunate, but it's just, people just fail to realize that, like you said, everything in life is not free. You have to look at these pensions,
Yes.
in these transportation sectors. There's just no way. I mean, it's the same thing like with the post office.
That's right. That's right. And even in some of the work we're doing in North Carolina,
Hmm.
they are saying, "Well, God, we need to put these water systems and water lines in." And I said, well, there's a way to do that. I mean, of course, they put all that bipartisan infrastructure money, but
Hmm.
there's a WIFIA program too. So I said, you can borrow to do that. Oh my God, no, we don't want to borrow.
Right.
We don't. And I said, well, but that's access to millions upon millions, low interest loans. You might want, now the interest rates have popped up since I
Right.
told them that. But the bottom line is, it's just, again, the free is the better way. And I agree. If I can
Hmm.
help you get a grant that you don't have to, that's fine. But I was just telling them that you need to look at all the different avenues as you seek this, and some of that may involve a payback on some of this,
Right.
on some of these federal funds you
Right.
receive. So it's just interesting. And I try to tell everyone that I see that, yeah, nothing's free.
No.
There's a cost for everything that's done here. And I think, the other thing too is, that I will say is, I don't think
Hmm.
we should not make investments in things that are going to advance this country.
Right.
The chips and science. I think that's great stuff. I think, again, we need to continue to do what we're doing in terms of STEM education as well. But the other thing too is workforce. I think we need to still focus quite a bit on workforce with industry, community colleges, and their partners.
Right.
But I think you want to know what the outcomes are too, because members used to always tell me, I would go in, they said, well, you guys come in talking about this training, talking about training. How many jobs are actually being created? Because, yeah, I want to help you with this, but I also want to know where the jobs are being created, so that my
Right.
constituents will know, sort of, when they see these training press releases come through and opportunities, they know that they can go down to ABC Community College and get trained and have a chance to get these jobs. So, I think all that counts. And again, members who want to do those, who ask those kinds
Hmm.
of questions and who are engaged, those are the kinds of people that I want, up in Washington
Exactly.
representing me. Not some that just pat you on the back when you say, "Oh, that sounds great. Yeah, that sounds well. Just keep in touch with me, and we'll see what we can do." No, we want to know, this is what we want you to do right now.
Right.
And I think the
Right.
whole thing about elected officials, and I tell people, whether it's your city council member, it's your county commissioner,
Hmm.
your water board, it's your waste board, it's whatever, your economic development. You can hold these people account. You have to hold them
Right.
accountable at every level. And we don't do that. I think I did that. I had some inquiries into Glenn Youngkin, and he had mentioned some things, and I said, I want to know more about this. I want to share my opinion on that. I didn't get an answer back. I shouldn't say I didn't. I still haven't. He's not been in too long, so maybe he'll
Hmm.
answer me eventually. But the bottom line is that, I was like, if people are voting in like this, I at least want to reach out and let them know I have concerns, and I want to let you know. And I'm not going to go away. So, if I don't hear from you in the next 3 months, I will be calling your office and writing you
Right.
again until I get the answer. But I think we go vote, and then we complain that they don't do anything. And it's like, but we've never really held them accountable from the day they got in. We just vote and we go. You get upset, or you don't let them know what's on your mind. And so often, I think we bring a lot of this as voters on ourselves,
Right.
by the people we elect and the people that we don't hold, and we don't hold them accountable.
Yeah. I mean, I saw a clip
Hmm.
on social media. I can't remember the name of the woman. She has a podcast, and I think she was at a HBCU,
Hmm.
and they were talking to the college students about voting, and one young woman stood up and said, we keep hearing this from y'all,
Hmm.
and she started talking about how difficult it is for her father because he can't read,
Hmm.
and it's just I get frustrated with young people because they want instant gratification,
Yes.
and
I
and
live
it
with one. So,
yeah,
yes.
well, because it's funny because
Yeah.
with the Generation Zers and and
Hmm.
the Ys, and I mean, because you and I are Generation X,
That's right.
and I read on Twitter this one David Hogg
Oh
from the
yeah,
Park.
from the Florida kid. Yeah.
He said, my generation has never been, alive in this country when it's been good, because it's
Oh.
always been divided.
Mm.
And I'm like, well, I'm sorry. We grew up under desegregation.
Right.
And I go, this country has always been divided. He said, it's just, it's the uncertainty, because he talked about the inflation. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I grew up
Right.
in the 70s. What are you
Right.
talking about?
Yes.
Gas shortages,
Yes.
And I go, huh?
Yeah. Not a new phenomenon, right?
No, I mean it's not. And they think that everything is going on now is a new phenomena.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, because it was funny because my podcast producer Marcus, we were talking earlier before you came on.
Mm-hmm.
Like what happened after Watergate
Mm-hmm.
and how Richard Nixon stepped up to the plate, resigned,
Yes.
and left peacefully.
Mm-hmm.
And then Gerald Ford became president.
And
And
part.
then, he was like, I'm going to pardon the president.
Mm-hmm.
He said, because as a country, we need to move forward.
That's right.
That's not happening right now.
No, it's not. And I'll say this about the young people. There was a poll up I think I saw earlier this morning, and I
Hmm.
think it said that 22% of them say that they are not going to vote. 34 say that they are likely, and I guess the rest said that they probably will. And so the issue that was being raised around that point was whether or not are is there an issue reaching that generation, this generation, the Generation Z, because they should want to be more engaged in voting
Right.
and being involved in having their voices heard. And one person said, well, the issue with that is when you're late in a campaign like this, it's sort of hard to chase those folks at this point. You sort of got to go to
Right.
where you're going to have the votes. So, there was some, well, you can't get them with network news. You have to have their ads on the phones. You have to do all these things that are really, really different. You got to get on Instagram, I guess, and TikTok and all those things
Right.
if you want to reach those people. And the other thing, too, my son was telling me we were driving to the polls last week. He said, well, nothing's going to change no matter who we vote for. And I said, time out, buddy.
Wow.
That's not true. And he says, well, I see it as like it's the political system is built on money. He was like, it seems like whoever has the most money has the most influence. He was like, and that's why he says, but no, I know how precious this right is to you and for us, for our family and friends and many others. He says, but
Hmm.
no, I'm going to cast. He's like, but I just don't have the faith that things are going to change. And then he's like, yeah, and then the whole Trump thing just turned everything upside down. I said, well, yeah. I said, no, he did, but I said, we can't live off the fact that he came in and turned it
Right.
upside down and things can't get any better. And I said, you should never feel like your vote is not of value because it is. And I don't tell you who to vote for, how to vote, but that's your voice. So never feel like, it's all about money and nothing can change. I said, there are people elected every day all across the world that
Right.
probably never thought they had a shot that are in office. So I said, I don't ever think of it that way. And I think you're right on healing the country. See, the problem we have now. So you were just telling me, that the former president is going to come back and, you know,
Hmm.
again. So he's going to start at ground zero with the divisiveness and then all of the stuff that he runs that he likes. Because you're right. After January 6th, that should have been some type of, I am very sorry for this. These things shouldn't have occurred, but that's never going to happen,
No.
especially when people are running on a line. Think about this. You have people all around the country who know
Hmm.
it's been proven this was all a lie, a hoax, a lie, and they're still leading in their polls.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know.
Yes.
I was like, now I've never seen anything like that.
Right.
And I said these would people would have been disqualified day one. But these people are leading in their polls and they are still running. I said anyone that's running on the lie should be disqualified. I wish there was a way to disqualify them from running. But
Exactly.
yeah, we can't. But I tell you, if they're running on that, I tell people, what do you think they're going to do when they come to Washington? What do you think? Are they
Exactly.
going to the governor's mansion? What are they going to do for you? Because I don't see it.
Nothing.
Right, exactly.
Well,
And
I
he's
mean, the president said, he says, yeah, he said, if they take over the House and Senate, they're going to impeach me. He's like, for what?
yeah, right.
It's
Yeah,
like seriously, like for what? And it's like, we know high crimes and misdemeanors. Okay.
right.
They probably are going to use that. They're going to go after Hunter Biden.
Yes.
I mean, I will put it to you this way. I was talking to an appropriations staffer on the House side who's in the
Hmm.
minority right now. And I was like, oh, I know you're busy, wrapping up FY23. He said, well, no. He's like, we're working on investigations, oversight and investigations.
Oh,
And it's already started in the House Energy and Commerce Committee, by the way.
okay.
The ranking Republican has already sent out letters to all the federal agencies under the jurisdiction of that committee.
Yes.
It's already started.
And Jim Jordan's done the same thing on the judiciary too.
Uh-huh.
He said that because he had already said that Merrick Garland needs to clear his calendar. So yeah, I mean, so you're going to get 2 years of retribution, and then I wonder will
Mm-hmm.
people be like mad because nothing's going to get done, and then they'll flip back and be like, okay, let's change the majority again. And it's like because the Republicans, if anything, they're gonna what they say they're going to do, they're going to do.
They
And I
are.
do believe those investigations.
I agree with you.
They're going to bring Fauci up there and beat him up some more. And yeah, I think they'll impeach. They said even Kamala Harris too,
Yeah.
because she hasn't done her job at the border. They'll impeach Joe Biden. But I don't think McCarthy. My feelings. I don't think he really wants to start off dealing with that. But that Freedom Caucus, I'm telling you, he may not have a choice. To be
Well,
honest.
yeah, because funny, because the head of the Club for Growth,
Mm-hmm.
he said point blank recently, he said, do not go down that rabbit hole on impeachment.
Yep.
He's like, don't do it. Because the moment that they do it, that's going to be their downfall. Because I mean, all it is just a minority
That's right.
in their caucus, and then with Republican voters in general. They're in the minority.
That's
And they
true.
scream the loudest. At the end of the day, people want results.
Exactly.
They
Exactly.
want, like, we already know, like you said earlier, inflation is a global issue. It's not
Mhm.
just us.
That's right.
We're ranked the lowest inflation rate in the nation. I mean, in the world,
Hmm. Right.
And I mean, and they keep blaming Joe Biden. It's like this is not Joe Biden's fault.
No.
It's not. I mean, I will say this to Senator Bernie Sanders' credit.
Hmm.
He did go on one of the talking head shows, Sunday shows, and said, I think it was on Meet the Press, and he said, no, he said, this is not President Biden's fault. He said, this is a global issue. Our inflation rate is the lowest in the world as opposed to other major industrialized countries. And people are just like, well, and my whole thing is this, Ron, if you're going to vote your pocketbook this
Hmm.
midterm election, then you don't want your democracy.
That's true.
You just don't, because it's just like, I'm sorry, democracy is on the ballot
That's right.
next Tuesday. It's on the ballot next Tuesday. And if you're worried about a short term, negative impact on you, knowing that we're going to get out of this by next year,
Right.
economists do say that, even though the Fed
Yeah, they
doesn't know what it's doing because it's not
right.
working.
It's not. They keep doing the same thing over and over, and it's not working. And I will tell you this: there was I think, some independent economists who, what they were trying to do was to do a comparative, whether if the Republicans take over, the stuff that they propose, how much will that improve the economy? And they were like,
Right.
nah, no, I really won't. So they're like, so if you're voting, like you said, on that, based on that,
Yeah.
I hate to tell you, but you're probably not going to get the result you want. And I think
No.
that gets back to people. See, they hear those campaign ads, they see these guys at rallies and these campaign
Mm-hmm.
events, and they think, oh, they're going to go to Washington the day they're elected, and they're going to put this and pass this law. And my God, inflation is going to go down, prices are going to go down, gas is going to go down. They're going to do this. And I'm like, I try to tell people that I know, I said, it doesn't work like that.
No.
Don't believe
Yeah.
those are TV advertisements to promote something. They're not
I mean,
necessarily
it is. I mean, well,
grounded in
President
fact.
Biden will still have the veto power,
That's what I told people. So I said
but
they're not. Yeah.
they
Hmm.
can override, or they might do Congressional Review Act.
That's true. Yeah.
So, I mean, they're going to try and circumvent as best as they can, and they're going to keep doing this until 2024.
Yep. And the other thing I don't think people understand, like the whole Social Security thing, because they've
Yes.
been saying we need to get entitlements. I mean, Ron Johnson's been talking, a lot of them. And so I'm like, seems like more people really be concerned about, their health and their Social
Mm-hmm.
Security. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not even, I think
Mm-hmm.
you're right. It's not even resonating because people are so tied up with this inflation and prices and the country's going in the wrong direction.
Right.
And we're going to lose it just for a moment of trying to put money in your pocket. This country is going to be in danger forever because you're right. You can't put a price on democracy, and it's like
No,
we're not valuing it at this point, in my opinion, with who we put in
I
office.
know. I mean, they want fascism in our country because that's where
Yep,
it's going to go.
exactly.
Well, we're going to have an autocrat in the White House in 2024. I mean, I
Yep.
hope it doesn't happen, but I mean, people, that's one of the reasons why I started doing this podcast,
Hmm.
because I got fed up with people being ignorant about how their government works.
Right.
And most politicians, they want you to not understand. They
Absolutely.
deliberately, the acronyms, the political jargon,
Hmm.
because one of the things that I do on every episode of my episode show notes, I have links to CRS reports, Ron.
Yep.
I mean, because okay, so the latest episode that has been released, on Spotify and other
Hmm.
platforms is about lame duck.
Okay.
Ron, I did not know lame duck was established through the 20th Amendment of our Constitution.
I did not know that either.
I had no idea, and so that's why we're always on. Congress starts on odd years in January.
Hmm.
Before they were doing it in December, and I had no idea. And it's just like, it's just those things, like you want to talk about certain things like the budget process. I did a whole episode on that, and budget reconciliation, just
Hmm.
explaining to people in layman's terms, like this is what your government is doing, and don't always believe the political hype from either party.
That's right.
And then from those who go on social media, and they kept saying throughout the 117th Congress, oh, the Democrats control the White House and Congress. I'm like, no, we don't. You don't.
That's
There's a
true.
little thing that, the Senate,
Hmm.
simple majority of 51, you could do judicial nominations because they did the nuclear option.
That's right.
But everything else,
60, right?
60,
60 votes. Yep.
60. And
And
they're
and
like, well, no, that's not true.
yeah.
Ron, a politician on a social media platform said, oh, President Biden, he nominates committee chairman.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, I can't make this up. And I mean, and that's a part of the problem with what we've been talking about, is the quality and abilities of these candidates
Yep.
and those that are, coming into public office.
Hmm.
They truly do not understand how our government works. I mean, I will tell you, there's one member of Congress who's a mayor of one of the cities in the state of Washington. She's brilliant.
Hmm.
She gets it. She came up with ideas. I sat there in her office and I was like, wow, I want to be you when I grow up. Because I mean, it's just like, and I'm talking about Marilyn Strickland from the
Okay.
10th Congressional District of the state of Washington.
Okay.
She's awesome. She thinks outside the box. She works with Republicans, and she's like, I'm here to get something done.
There we go.
She's like, I want to be a part of the solution. I don't want to be the problem. And we need more like that. And it's just,
Yes.
it's very, very frustrating, because one of the other things that I think with regards to the Democratic caucus, you don't have that many blue dogs anymore.
Yeah, it's like, and when I first started doing this job, they were a force. It meant something. But
Right.
now that you're right, you're either going to be all the way in the other crowd, or yeah, we don't have that, and that's exactly what we need. What we need now. I know that Josh Gottheimer, they
Yeah.
had their, and Alyssa Slotkin is a member. She's often talked to us about being, part
Hmm.
of that particular caucus. But it's like we need more of these cross-party caucuses. But at the same time, you could be looked down, frowned upon
Right.
by doing, by doing those kinds of things too. And because I work with some members who dare not would do anything with a Democrat, so they wouldn't be caught doing anything with a Democrat. And it's like, they made it sound like Democrats and Republicans are just
Right.
the thumbs of the earth. In which I'm like, political party, that's not where we need to be as a
No,
nation. And the whole Nancy Pelosi thing, I mean, I look at what happened to her husband. I mean, I don't know how in the world, and our governor played around and joked
I
about it,
know.
and of course, Carrie Lake. But I'm like, how can you just be so heartless and just don't even no empathy, not one
None.
eighth empathy, and to make fun. I mean, this guy, the man was trying to kill him. That was
Yes.
trying to assassinate him. And my God, had she been there? who knows? And I'm thinking, God, will this calm down? But I was like, January 6th didn't really change. The rhetoric got high. And there was something else that happened, even when the cops were shot back in the day.
Hmm.
But there have been things that have happened. Even 2000, when we had September 11th, I was like,
Yes.
oh, these guys are going to come together forever. I mean, we all could have been done in up here, but they're going to come. But it's like things will happen, or the shooting at the baseball practice.
Yes.
And you think, and I'm like, how could any of those guys not want some kind of universal background check?
I
Out
know.
there, especially, and then I look at what happened with Mr. Scalise. I'm like, my God, how in the world would you not want to just? Everyone should overwhelmingly support universal background checks at police.
Right.
But all these things you think that would happen that would sort of make them think, man, we're in this together. We've got some bad people out there, and we need to stop promoting things that get these people
Exactly.
all riled up to go do these things. So
Right.
no, I don't see it. I just hate to say it. I don't see it changing right now at this point. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe if things they switch and things change, but I think as long as that fraction of Freedom Caucus and those kind of
Hmm.
guys, and I don't know how much McCarthy would need to give up for them to vote for him. I don't, I'm sure that's got to play in this too. So
He's gonna
we'll
sell his soul. Well, he
I
already
think
has.
so. Well, he did because he was run down at Mar-a-Lago. Right after that. So when he did
Hmm.
that, I was like, I'm done with him. I mean,
I mean, so
you're done.
I mean, we're almost to the hour, but
Okay.
what do you think? I mean, where do we go from here, and how can people just be one of my the tagline of Topless Government podcast
Hmm.
is citizen legislators, because
Yep.
that's what I want people to become.
Hmm.
Because for me, knowledge is power.
Yep.
And, you and I grew up on, Schoolhouse Rock.
Hmm.
And I mean, this podcast is Schoolhouse Rock. Well, someone described it as Schoolhouse Rock on steroids.
Yeah.
I mean, and the thing is, it's just like, so where do we go from here? How do we hold, you know, political candidates accountable when they start running for office, and then they bring out, these conspiracy theories, the
Yeah.
disinformation.
Hmm.
How do we protect ourselves, arm ourselves to making sure that we hold these people accountable, because they have to have leadership skills, just
That's right.
skills in general.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. And as I look at it, I think number one, what you're doing is amazing and breaking this stuff down so that everyone can really understand the system that you and I function in on a daily
Right.
basis. So I do, because you can get so I think people look at the federal government and say, man, things complex. You got the House, you got the, judiciary branch,
Hmm.
administration, you got Congress, then you got all these agencies and acronyms. It's just overwhelming. I don't want to deal with that. But I think you bring it to them that way. And I always thought too. I said, well, so for instance, out here, if Hung Cow beats Jennifer Wexton,
Hmm.
are there a group of us citizens that as soon as he wins, bipartisan, you find some neighbors and you ask to have a meeting with him,
Yes.
or you start off there and then, or you come to him, you gather around and say, hey, we want to talk. This is what we're thinking about. These are things we want to see you put on your priority list for us. But then I think you've got to go back, whether it's your neighbors, and you don't get them all that are in one party, but get some, but I think
Right.
small groups, and then schedule meetings with them. When he's in the district, you want to have, and I think, and have him report on those things. It almost needs to be systematic, where you see, and then you say at the end of a year or 6 months, he hasn't done this, he hasn't done that. In
Hmm.
2 years, he's running. Oh, I want to be reelected. No, you know what? We're not going to vote for you, and we're going to go out and tell other people not to vote for you, because these were things that we were looking for, and you didn't. Now, what you have to do in a situation like that, it's almost like community grassroots stuff, is
Right.
what I think you got to get to. But I think because we can do that, for me out here, like if Phyllis Randall is doing something I don't like, it's different. I can get on the phone and call her or write her staff and say, hey, what
Right.
is this thing? And I think people don't understand how easy you can do that at the local level. You can do that on the federal level. They come into their districts. They have district office. They have staff. So I think again, once they're elected, we just let them go, and it's like you let them go, and then they're back in your face campaigning,
Right.
because it's every 2 years in the House. So I think the day you win, you start really campaigning again almost anyway. So I think that's what we've got. The people have to seize their rights. They have to hold these people, and they have to figure it out. And I think you don't necessarily go up to the office on Capitol Hill. You catch them when they're in the district at these forums
Yes.
and at these meetings, or you schedule them and you make sure that. And then if they don't want to come, hey, he's not even showing up to listen to his constituents. I think that's some bad press. I would never want that press. Although some
Right.
of them, the more entrenched ones, don't care because they've been here so long. But I think there are a number of members that do care, even who've been there a long time, that do respect the fact that they are representing the people. So I don't know. I just think it's got to be two pronged. One is the education, but
Mm-hmm.
you have got to find from the community from the community level. You need to attack them that way in terms of what they should be doing and things that they're doing that you don't like. I mean, because I look at it too. I said, if these members are running around conspiracy theory, man, people, you got to tell them there's got to be someone in their district other than the folks that they kowtow to that don't like this. Are they
Right.
hearing from those folks? Are those folks saying, they're going to do what they do anyway? They got that strong base. I don't have time to weigh in on that. I don't think so. I think you have to make the time. It has to be important to you if we want to preserve, this democracy.
I agree. I mean, what, and on that note, thank you for coming on the show. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah. Thank you.
I
I
mean, I think this
enjoyed
was a very good, timely discussion. And it's something that we need to work on further
it.
along.
Yep.
Because just like you said, I mean, we need to hold them accountable. I mean,
Hmm.
if these, extreme left or right,
Hmm.
of center people are elected into office for the 118th Congress, we need to hold them accountable on November 9th, starting on November 9th, and
That's
moving
right.
on. And then saying,
Exactly.
like, okay, campaign's over. What are you truly going to do now? Are you going to do
Yes.
the work? Are you going to be committed? Are you
Hmm.
going to work with constituents that disagree with you?
Right.
And not just those that voted for you. But I think you're right. I think you're on to something. And I think, yeah, we should start doing that. We really do.
Yeah.
So, Ron, thank you again. This is Ron Hamm, president of the Hamm Consulting Group. Thank you for coming on Topless Government. Have a good weekend.
You do the same, Kristen. Thanks for having me. Pleasure as always, and continue to do great things.
Thank you so much, Ron.
Okay, take care.
Bye bye.
Bye.